The early morning air was heavy with stillness as Carl and his crew rolled into the forgotten quarry. Before we continue, please take some time to subscribe to Daily Dose, like, and share this video. The site had been silent for more than 2 decades. No one expected anything more than dust, debris, and the tedious grind of earth-moving work. Just another job. Get in, clean up, dig deeper, move on. That's all it was supposed to be. But buried beneath the decades of rock and silence was something no one could have imagined. Something that hadn't seen the light of day in over 30 years, and the moment they hit it, nothing would ever be the same. It all started on a Monday, the kind where the sky was still black when the trucks rumbled onto the site. The quarry lay just outside town, far enough that you couldn't hear anything but the wind. Carl was leading the project, experienced, calm, the kind of guy you followed without asking too many questions. His crew of a dozen men were upbeat. The job was big, and big jobs meant long contracts and solid pay. They had one mission: strip the quarry down to its rocky bones and expand it by more than 100 feet. Housing demands were rising, and stone was needed. Simple economics. The first 2 days passed without incident. Machines cut through vines and dragged away debris. Shovels clanged against concrete, and the crew's banter echoed off the crumbling quarry walls. They were making fast progress. Then came day 3. The crane operator was digging into a section near the east wall when the noise hit a metal-on-metal crash that silenced every machine and voice instantly. It wasn't the normal sound of rock scraping metal. This was sharp, deafening, foreign. The crew gathered at the edge of the hole. At the bottom, something gleamed faintly in the dirt-smooth, yellow-tinted metal. They thought maybe it was some kind of old industrial safe or a buried tank from years back. But as they dug around it with shovels and smaller tools, the truth became clearer and weirder. The object was perfectly cylindrical, about 5 feet wide and nearly 6 feet deep, with what looked like doors on either side. The material felt cold, industrial, but almost too clean to have been buried so long. Carl walked up to it, inspecting the sides. Without warning, he gripped the handle on one of the doors and gave it a pull. It opened. And inside was nothing. Just a hollow space, like a metal passage. A short tunnel with another identical door on the opposite end. Carl, without saying a word, stepped through it. The crew watched, confused, but Carl wasn't focused on them anymore. He had turned to face something far stranger. In the bottom of the pit they dug now, partially revealed by the heavy machinery, was a dark, perfectly round opening. A tunnel, cut cleanly into the rock. Carl's voice broke the silence. "It's a tunnel," he said flatly. One of the crew asked what everyone was thinking. "Where does it go?" No one answered. There was only one way to find out. Carl gathered the crew and grabbed a flashlight. A few men hesitated, and 1 or 2 quietly stepped away. The job had taken a weird turn, and not everyone wanted to be part of what felt like the start of a horror movie. Carl didn't stop them. "If you want out, go," he said. No shame in that. In the end, 6 men, including Carl, made the decision to enter the passage. As they stepped inside, the air changed. It was dry and musty, filled with cobwebs and dust, but the walls were remarkably smooth. Too smooth. They weren't the jagged edges of a natural formation. They were carved, intentional, almost surgical in precision. This wasn't erosion. Someone had built this. The deeper they went, the stranger things became. Beams lined the tunnel, all spaced exactly the same distance apart. On each one, painted symbols marked the wood circles and lines, all in different colors, but the same pattern. As the flashlights flickered over them, the colors seemed to shimmer subtly, like the paint had metallic flecks embedded in it. Then came the sound. It started faintly, a low, humming metallic whine that echoed gently down the corridor. They froze. Someone whispered, "Did you hear that?" And then came another sound, not mechanical, not wind, a cry distant, hollow, human. Panic hit fast. One of the younger crewmen, Mark, muttered, "I'm not staying down here another second," and bolted. 2 more followed. Carl didn't argue. Fear underground was like water in a cracked dam. Once it started flowing, it didn't stop. It was better they left before it got worse. Only Carl and 5 others remained. They pressed forward. The tunnel narrowed again. The air got colder, but just when they were about to turn back, the path opened into a chamber wide, silent, and filled with signs of something once human. Carvings etched into the walls. Tools, real tools, leaned against the rock, caked in dust but preserved by time. There were symbols drawn onto the floor, faint, almost tribal. Something about them tugged at Carl's memory, but he couldn't quite place it. Then, footsteps. Not theirs. Deliberate, shuffling. Close? The team ducked behind nearby rocks, holding their breath. The steps grew louder. Then into the chamber walked a group of figures, older men, all of them gray-haired, all wearing tattered work clothes. One of them held an oil lantern, swinging it side to side. Carl's heart raced. These weren't ghosts. They were alive. He watched as the group moved slowly, talking quietly among themselves. They didn't notice the hidden crew. They lit more lanterns, placed along the wall. The chamber glowed warmly now, revealing old bed frames, rusted carts turned into storage, makeshift furniture, a whole underground living space. Someone among Carl's group gasped involuntarily. Too loud. The old men stopped. One of them turned toward the shadows. "Who's there?" he called. Carl motioned for silence, but it was too late. The old man stepped closer, lifting the lantern. Carl and his crew bolted, back down the tunnel, back toward the light. But before they reached the curve, the voice called again. "Wait! We mean no harm." Carl stopped. His team did too. The old man wasn't chasing them. He just stood there at the edge of the chamber, calm. Carl turned. "We came here to find out what this is," he told the others. "Let's do it." They walked back. The man holding the lantern didn't look like a threat. His shoulders were slouched, not from menace, but from years of labor and isolation. As Carl and his crew stepped cautiously into the chamber, the old man raised the lantern higher, casting a golden light across their dirt-streaked faces. "We just want to talk," he said gently. Carl stepped forward. "I'm Carl. We're a restoration crew. We hit something metallic while excavating and uncovered this." He motioned toward the tunnel behind them. "We had no idea anyone was down here." The old man's eyes glistened. "After all these years," he whispered. Other men emerged from the shadow 6 more, all elderly, all weathered by time. Some limped, some leaned on makeshift canes. One of them sat on a rusted cart converted into a bed and stared blankly, his mind seemingly lost to the years. The man with the lantern finally introduced himself. "My name is John," he said. "We used to work this quarry, a long time ago." Carl's brow furrowed, but the quarry was shut down over 25 years ago. John nodded solemnly. 32 years, to be exact. There was an earthquake. It collapsed a series of tunnels and sealed us in. We were declared dead. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. "You've been down here all this time?" one of Carl's crew members asked. John sat down slowly on a bench, fashioned from stone and metal beam. "There were over 20 of us in the beginning. The storage room, now buried in another collapsed wing, had enough supplies for months. We rationed, stretched, built a life down here the only way we could." Carl couldn't believe what he was hearing. "But how did you survive this long?" John looked around at the remaining men. Rice, beans, clean water from a trickle deep in the wall. The real challenge wasn't food, it was time. Waiting, hoping, losing hope. We kept thinking someone would find us, but no one ever came. The older men had aged in the dark, away from the sun, in a world of stone and flickering lanterns. 8 of them remained. They hadn't just survived, they'd adapted. Built shelters, drawn calendars, even kept track of birthdays. But they'd resigned themselves to die underground until now. "There's a way out," Carl said slowly. "The door we found. It's open. You can come with us." John's hand trembled. "You're certain?" Carl nodded. "I wouldn't say it if I wasn't." The room remained still. Then, one by one, the elderly men stood. Some cried openly. Others laughed. A few simply stared ahead, trying to believe that it was real. That this moment, the one they had given up on decades ago, had finally come. Carl and his team helped the men gather what few belongings they had. A pocket watch, a pair of worn leather boots, a notebook filled with poems and journal entries, each item a fragment of a lost life. Together, they walked the tunnel back, slowly and carefully. The men hadn't felt open air in over 30 years. Some hadn't walked a long distance in just as long. But step by step, they moved. When the daylight finally poured in from the end of the tunnel, most of them wept. The world outside had changed. Towns had grown. Technologies evolved. People they once knew had moved on or passed on. But none of that mattered yet. What mattered was that they had made it. They were alive.